Sterile wealthy CEO, took his maid Virginity, but cried when she whispered, "You were my only dream." The night Chicago froze over, Lucas broke his cardinal rule. Never get involved in employees' personal lives, because her voice on the phone trembled with a fear he couldn't ignore. Have you ever witnessed someone powerful at their weakest moment? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. In Chicago's Gold Coast, wealth bought everything except what Lucas Whitmore needed most, until his maid found him broken on the bathroom floor, clutching infertility test results he'd hidden from the world. The 42-year-old investment tycoon had mastered the art of appearing untouchable. His corner office overlooked Lake Michigan. His name graced buildings across downtown, and his divorce from New York royalty had somehow made him even more desirable to Chicago's elite. But none of that mattered now. Chicago's skyline glittered like false promises through floor-to-ceiling windows as Lucas crumpled the medical report, the word irreversible blurring before his eyes. He didn't hear the bathroom door open, didn't notice her until a soft voice cut through his thoughts. "Mr. Whitmore? I'm so sorry, I didn't realize." His head snapped up, eyes meeting Aaliyah Brooks, 19, from Mississippi, quiet, efficient, the perfect live-in maid who faded into backgrounds and appeared only when needed. Except now, witnessing something nobody was supposed to see. "Get out," he said, voice razor-sharp. She didn't move. Instead, those deep brown eyes swept over the scattered papers, the shattered glass of scotch against Italian marble, his usually perfect appearance now disheveled and raw. "Do you need help standing, sir?" No pity, no curiosity, just steady compassion that felt worse than judgment. Something electric passed between them when she extended her hand. When he reluctantly took it, her fingers warm against his cold ones, he noticed how small they were. How strong. The contact lasted 3 seconds too long after he was upright. "This never happened," he said, straightening his shoulders, rebuilding walls. "Of course, Mr. Whitmore." She nodded, retreating toward the door. But then she paused, turning slightly. "My grandmother always said some of the strongest trees bear no fruit. Their purpose is providing shelter for others." She was gone before he could respond, leaving only the faint scent of lemon cleaning products and something floral he couldn't name. Have you ever witnessed someone powerful at their weakest moment? That second where masks fall and everything changes? Drop a heart below if you've seen the real person behind someone's perfect facade. When she knocked at his office door that evening with his customary coffee, Lucas noticed for the first time how gracefully she moved, how her eyes reflected intelligence beyond her station. Most dangerously, he realized she'd mentioned nothing of the morning's incident to anyone. The first person in his adult life who'd kept his secrets without being paid to. That night, as snowflakes began falling over Chicago, Lucas Whitmore recognized the first crack in walls he'd built since New York. Walls no 19-year-old from Mississippi should have the power to breach. The night Chicago froze over, Lucas broke his cardinal rule. Never get involved in employees' personal lives, because her voice on the phone trembled with a fear he couldn't ignore. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry to call so late." Aaliyah's usually steady voice wavered through his phone speaker at 11:43 p.m. Background noise suggested a bar or club. "The date went bad. He won't let me leave, and I don't have money for a cab." Lucas was already grabbing his keys before she finished speaking. Address. Now, his Bentley slid through streets transformed into Arctic wasteland, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against relentless snow, the GPS highlighting her location like a desperate heartbeat on the screen. The temperature had plummeted to -15. Chicago hadn't seen a storm this severe in decades. The club's neon sign flickered weakly as he pulled up. Aaliyah stood huddled against the building, her coat clearly inadequate, a tall man gripping her arm. Lucas was out of the car in seconds, ice crystals forming in his hair. "Take your hand off her," he said, voice low but carrying dangerous authority. The man, younger than Lucas but older than Aaliyah, sneered. "Mind your business, old man. She's with me." "No, I'm not," Aaliyah said, attempting to pull away. What happened next was pure instinct. Lucas moved forward, broke the man's grip with practiced precision, and positioned himself between them. She works for me. She's leaving with me. End of discussion. The drive back was silent, roads nearly impassable as the blizzard intensified. When they reached his Gold Coast mansion, the power was already flickering. "You can't go to your apartment tonight," Lucas said as they entered the warm foyer. "Roads are closed. The guest room is yours." She nodded, snow melting from her curls, creating tiny rivers down her neck. When the lights went out completely minutes later, Lucas lit the fireplace in the main living room. They sat on opposite ends of his imported leather sofa, the dancing flames the only illumination. "Thank you," she whispered. "I should have known better than to trust someone I met online." "You shouldn't be thanking me for basic human decency." Her eyes reflected firelight as she looked at him. "Basic decency isn't that common, Mr. Whitmore." "Lucas," he corrected, surprising himself. "At least when we're not working." Something shifted as they talked through the night, about Mississippi cotton fields and Chicago boardrooms, about dreams deferred and expectations defied. The temperature inside rose while Chicago froze outside. His hands shook as they traced her tear-stained face, their breath creating clouds between them. "I shouldn't," he whispered, even as she rose to meet him, her fingers clutching his cashmere coat. "But I need you to," she answered. "What moment in your life crossed a line you never thought you'd cross? Was it worth it? Tell me in the comments if you've ever taken a risk that changed everything." As dawn broke over a white Chicago, Lucas watched her sleeping form and realized with cold clarity, this wasn't just about desire. Something fundamental had shifted, and there was no blueprint in his billion-dollar portfolio for what came next. For 23 days, Lucas perfected the art of avoiding the woman who lived in his home, until the morning her breakfast note read simply, "We can't pretend forever." The simple white card leaned against his coffee cup, her handwriting neat and deliberate. He stared at it for 10 minutes before crumpling it in his fist, another meeting already demanding his attention, another reason to escape the mansion before she appeared. The mansion's endless corridors became a chess game of timing and avoidance. Breakfast left before he woke, dinner after he retreated to his study, passing like ships in carefully calculated darkness. When they did cross paths, their exchanges were painfully professional. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore," and "Thank you, Aaliyah," as though that night by the fire had been a shared hallucination. But the memory followed him everywhere, into meetings where he lost his train of thought when someone mentioned storm, into his shower where water droplets reminded him of melting snow in her hair, into dreams that left him waking tangled in sheets, reaching for someone who wasn't there. His executive assistant, Catherine, noticed first. "You seem distracted lately," she observed, sliding a contract across his desk. "Board members are asking questions." "About what?" Lucas signed without reading. "About why you're different. About whether it has anything to do with your young live-in staff." His pen paused mid-signature. "What exactly are people saying?" Catherine's expression remained professional, but her eyes held warning. "That the maid from Mississippi has caught more than your eye. That history might be repeating itself, considering how your last relationship ended." The comparison to his ex-wife ignited something cold and sharp. "That will be all, Catherine." That evening, he came home early for the first time in weeks. Found Aaliyah in the kitchen preparing dinner, her back to him, humming something soft and unfamiliar. For a moment, he simply watched. The gentle sway of her hips, the concentration as she chopped vegetables, the domesticity that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. When she turned and saw him, her knife clattered against the cutting board. Neither spoke as electricity charged the air between them. "I got your note," he finally said. "And yet it took you 3 more weeks to face me." No accusation in her voice, just fact. "I'm your employer, Aaliyah. I'm 23 years older than you. What happened was inappropriate. So you regret it." Her eyes searched his face. "Have you ever wanted something you knew could destroy everything you've built? What did you choose?" Like this video, if you found yourself caught between desire and duty. When his executive assistant mentioned the rumors already circulating downtown about the maid from Mississippi, Lucas realized his silence hadn't protected either of them. It had only given others permission to write their story. 3 words changed everything. Not "I love you," but "only dream." Spoken by a woman half his age who somehow held more courage in her trembling hands than he'd found in 4 decades of conquering markets. Lucas had come home late, mind racing with damage control strategies. Catherine had shown him the first whispers online, speculation about his relationship with staff, thinly veiled references to his divorce, questions about his company's future leadership. His reputation was fraying at the edges, all because he couldn't stop thinking about her. He found Aaliyah waiting in the hallway outside his bedroom. Moonlight spilled through skylights, painting silver paths across marble floors as she stood before him. Her work uniform exchanged for a simple cotton dress, her hands clasped to stop their shaking. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "There's nothing to discuss. What happened was a mistake. Then why are you still avoiding me? If it meant nothing, why can't you even look at me?" His jaw tightened. "Because I'm trying to protect you." "From what? From who?" She stepped closer. "From yourself? Or from what people might say about me? The girl from Clarksdale who seduced her rich boss? Is that what you think this is about? My ego?" His voice rose despite himself. "People in my world will destroy you without blinking. They'll call you a gold digger, an opportunist. They'll say you targeted me. And you believe that?" Her voice remained steady while her eyes filled. "Of course not. Then why does it matter what they think?" Lucas ran a hand through his hair, the careful control he prided himself on slipping. "Because I've spent 20 years building something that matters. Because I have employees who depend on me. Because you're afraid," she finished softly. The accusation hung between them, true in ways he couldn't deny. "I saved myself for something real," she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "Back home, girls get pregnant at 15, marry by 17, divorced or abandoned by 25. I promised myself I'd wait. For someone who mattered. You were my only dream, Lucas. Not your money, not your name, just you." The raw honesty knocked the air from his lungs. "When was the last time you were brave enough to tell someone exactly how you felt, knowing you might get hurt? Comment below if you've taken that risk." His phone rang, with his ex-wife's name lighting up the screen. The woman who'd left him because he couldn't give her children now calling at midnight, as though she somehow sensed another woman had claimed the place she abandoned. Lucas built his fortune understanding risk, but nothing prepared him for loving a woman whose every smile through his kitchen window invited judgment from 2 worlds determined to tear them apart. After that night in the hallway, something fundamental shifted. No more avoidance, no more pretending. Instead, they carved out a private world inside his mansion's walls. Breakfast together before dawn broke. Dinner conversations that stretched into midnight. Weekends exploring rooms of his home he'd forgotten existed. In the private garden where Chicago's elite couldn't witness. He taught her about wine, while she taught him about constellations visible from Mississippi fields. 2 education systems separated by privilege, but meeting in twilight. She'd point to stars and name them with the confidence of someone who'd spent childhood nights on porches without light pollution, while he identified vintages and regions with the precision of someone who'd bought his knowledge in exclusive tastings. "How do you know all these stars?" he asked one evening, their bodies close on a garden bench. "When you grow up poor in the country, the sky's the only entertainment you can afford," she smiled. "My grandmother taught me, said even if I left Clarksdale, the same stars would follow me wherever I went." His staff noticed the change immediately. Whispers traveled through downstairs corridors. His housekeeper of 15 years suddenly resigned. The gardener began finding excuses to work when Aaliyah wasn't around. "They hate me," she observed one evening, watching staff disperse as she entered a room. "They don't understand." "No one will," she said simply. "Not your world, not mine." His world made its judgment clear at a charity gala he couldn't avoid. Conversation stopped when he entered alone, resumed with increased volume when he mentioned his personal guest wouldn't attend. "Wise choice," his friend Martin murmured over champagne. "The board is already nervous, Lucas. Bringing the help would be gasoline on gossip. The words burn like acid. She's not the help, Martin. Then what is she? Girlfriend? Partner? Future Mrs. Whitmore? Martin's eyebrows rose, because any of those options poses significant problems for shareholder confidence. Her fingers traced scars on his back from childhood accidents she'd never know about, while his lips discovered the birthmark beneath her collarbone. Physical maps to past that had shaped them before this unlikely intersection. Their bodies spoke truths their words couldn't yet name, discovering each other with reverent attention in rooms where wealth meant nothing and connection everything. When have you felt caught between two worlds? Did you choose one or find a way to exist in both? Hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to choose between belonging and being true to yourself. The text from his board chairman was cryptic but chilling. Need to discuss personal matters affecting company image. Urgent meeting tomorrow. Beside him, Aaliyah slept peacefully, unaware the first attack was already inbound. In a room where billion-dollar decisions were made hourly, 7 white men in tailored suits stared at Lucas Whitmore with one unspoken question. Is she worth your empire? The meeting room felt colder than usual. Chicago's morning sun couldn't penetrate the tinted windows designed to keep the outside world at bay. Lucas straightened his tie, a power move he'd perfected decades ago, and faced a board that had backed his vision for 15 years. Let's not waste time, Chairman Reynolds began, sliding a folder across polished mahogany. These are preliminary reports from our PR team. Rumors about your personal situation have reached major investors. Lucas didn't touch the folder. My personal life has never been relevant before. Your previous personal life involved women of appropriate background and standing, Reynolds countered. Not household staff barely out of high school. The blood in Lucas's veins turned to ice. Be very careful with your next words. Board member Wilson cleared his throat. Lucas, we're concerned about perception. The age gap, the power imbalance, her background. Her background? Lucas's voice could have frozen flame. A black girl from Mississippi with no education beyond high school, suddenly involved with her billionaire employer? CFO Jameson shook his head. The optics are problematic at best, predatory at worst. Lucas stood slowly, each movement deliberate. Gentlemen, I've made this company billions. I've never asked for personal accommodations. I've sacrificed everything, health, relationships, family, to build Whitmore Investments. And now you presume to dictate who I can care about. Care about? Reynolds repeated flatly. So it's serious. My feelings are not this board's concern. They become our concern when stock prices drop 5% on rumors alone. Jameson pushed a financial report forward. Another 5, and we trigger investor protection clauses. The ultimatum came wrapped in corporate language. End a relationship or face a confidence vote. 3 months separation would allow proper perspective and demonstrate commitment to company stability. And if I refuse? Lucas asked, though he already knew. Reynolds' smile didn't reach his eyes. Then we'll reluctantly accept your resignation. What would you sacrifice for love? Career? Reputation? Financial security? Where would you draw the line? Comment below with what you'd choose. As Lucas left the meeting, his phone lit up with an unknown number and a text that froze his blood. I know what really happened in New York. Pay, or everyone learns about the woman who really left you. Aaliyah left Mississippi with 2 suitcases and a promise to her dying grandmother. I'll become someone important. Never imagining important would mean becoming the heart of a billionaire who couldn't stop the world from hurting her. Lucas found her in the garden that evening. The sunset painting her skin gold as she tended to herbs she'd planted when she first arrived. For a moment, he just watched. This woman whose gentle hands had rebuilt something inside him he thought permanently broken. They want me to end it, don't they? She asked without turning around. Her intuition constantly surprised him. Yes, she nodded, continuing to press soil around a basil plant. Are you going to? Instead of answering, he sat beside her on the garden bench. Tell me about Mississippi. About your family. Everything you've never told me. She looked at him then, measuring his sincerity before beginning. The story unfolded slowly. 3 generations of Brooks women raising children alone in a small blue house surrounded by cotton fields they didn't own. Her grandmother picking cotton well into her 70s. Her mother cleaning houses for white families since age 14. Aaliyah studying by candlelight during power outages, determined to break cycles. My grandmother saved every penny for 2 years to buy my bus ticket to Chicago. She said, dirt still under her fingernails. Told me, don't you come back here to stay, child. This place will swallow your dreams whole. She brought out a worn photo album from her room, pages swollen from humidity and time. Lucas's fingers traced images of a younger Aaliyah standing before a humble house with peeling blue paint, her smile wide despite surroundings. I send half my paycheck home every month, she said quietly. It's paying for my cousin's diabetes medication and my uncle's roof repairs. That's why I can't just quit and find another job if this gets complicated. The weight of her reality settled on his shoulders. While he worried about stock prices and board approval, she carried responsibility for an entire family's survival. When I was growing up, she continued, white men in nice cars would sometimes stop and talk to girls from my neighborhood. Nothing good ever came from those conversations. My grandmother warned us, they don't see you, just what they can take from you. Her eyes met his, vulnerable yet strong. But you're different. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. What piece of your past shaped you most? The part you show the world or the part you keep hidden? Drop a heart if you've carried family responsibility on your shoulders too. When Aaliyah's phone rang with her mother's ringtone, Lucas watched her face transform from contentment to terror. They're saying things about me back home, she whispered. About us. About what I've become. The hospital corridor stretched endless and white as Lucas ran, still wearing dinner suit and bow tie, heart hammering against $3 million of pending contracts forgotten in his abandoned briefcase. The call had come during the most important investor dinner of the quarter. Lucas was mid-presentation when his phone vibrated with Aaliyah's name. He'd silenced it, company protocol, until it buzzed again. And again, on the fourth call, he excused himself. Her voice had been barely audible. Lucas, something's wrong. I can't breathe right. The pain, then the thud of a fallen phone. He'd left everything, presentation, investors, contracts, running to his car with keys already in hand. The 20-minute drive to their home took 11. Red lights merely suggestions as panic fueled his speed. He found her unconscious on their bedroom floor. Now, in Northwestern Memorial's private wing, Lucas paced outside, double doors marked authorized personnel only. His hands that signed billion-dollar deals without trembling, shook uncontrollably. The persistent beeping of machines echoed from rooms where life hung in delicate balance. Emergency lights painted everything in artificial brightness, rendering Lucas's world in stark contrasts. Wealth meaningless against beeping monitors, power useless against white-coated authorities who kept him from her side. Mr. Whitmore, a doctor emerged, expression professionally neutral. I'm Dr. Rivera. How is she? Stable for now? We're running tests to determine what caused the collapse. Can I see her? Briefly. She's conscious but weak. Aaliyah looked impossibly small against white hospital sheets, for lines running into arms that had held him just hours earlier. Her eyes, always so bright, were dulled by medication and fear. When she saw him, tears spilled down her cheeks. I ruined your dinner. The absurdity of her concern broke something inside him. He crossed her bed, carefully gathering her hand between his. Nothing matters but you. Nothing. I didn't tell you, she whispered. I have a heart condition. Congenital. It's why I couldn't get health insurance when I moved here. The confession hit like physical pain. Why didn't you say anything? Because people who need things get left behind, she said simply. I didn't want to be another burden. Their foreheads touched, his tears falling onto her hospital gown. You're not a burden. You're everything. When was the moment you realized someone had become your whole world? Did it take a crisis to see it clearly? Tell me in the comments if a health scare ever showed you what truly matters. The doctor's expression remained neutral as he delivered words that altered everything. She's stable, but we found something concerning. Has she told you about her heart condition? or that she's pregnant. The Chicago Tribune headline read, "Whitmore's Maid expecting," above a photo taken through hospital windows. Their private miracle weaponized before they'd even processed it themselves. Lucas stared at the newspaper, delivered to Aaliyah's hospital room with morning coffee, as though it were just another day. The photo showed him at her bedside, his hand covering hers, his head bowed in what should have been a private moment of realization. "How did they know?" Aaliyah whispered, one hand moving protectively to her stomach. "We just found out ourselves." Lucas's jaw tightened. Someone at the hospital sold the information. His lawyer was already on speaker, damage control plans forming, but the damage was spreading like wildfire through financial markets and social media. Photographers lined the hospital exit like predators, cameras raised, questions shouted that turned their joy into scandal, their love into transaction, their future into entertainment. "Miss Brooks, did you plan the pregnancy to secure Whitmore's fortune?" "Lucas, is this why your ex-wife left? Because you were involved with staff?" "Aaliyah, how much child support are you asking for?" Security cleared a path to the waiting car, Lucas's arm around Aaliyah like a shield, her face hidden against his chest. Inside the vehicle, she finally broke, sobs shaking her body as they pulled away from the chaos. "They make it sound so ugly," she cried. "Like I planned this. Like I'm using you." "It doesn't matter what they say," Lucas insisted, though markets were already responding. Whitmore Investments stock dropping faster than analysts could explain, his phone buzzing constantly with calls from aboard. Back in the privacy of their home, medical equipment already delivered and arranged, they finally had space to process the dual revelations. Her heart condition complicating a pregnancy doctors had told Lucas was impossible. His hands trembled as they cradled her still flat stomach, tears tracking silently down his face. "They said I never could," he whispered. "You made the impossible real." Her fingers twined with his, anchoring him. "Some dreams refuse to listen to doctors," she smiled. The cardiologist arrived that afternoon. A specialist rushed from Mayo Clinic at Lucas's insistence. Dr. Abernathy reviewed her charts with increasing concern, his eyes meeting Lucas's over Aaliyah's head with silent warning. When Aaliyah dozed for medication, the doctor spoke plainly. "Mr. Whitmore, the pregnancy puts enormous strain on her heart. The condition was manageable before, but with these new demands on her system." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's significant risk. To both of them. Has anyone ever tried to make your happiness into something ugly? How did you protect what mattered most?" Hit subscribe if you've ever had to fight for love against public judgment. The specialist's face remained grave despite their joy. "The pregnancy complicates her condition significantly. You need to understand, carrying this child to term could kill her. Some choices are impossible. Her life or their child's, his empire or their future, silence or truth. Yet standing in that penthouse overlooking a city that waited for them to fail, they found themselves making all of them at once. Rain lashed against panoramic windows, the storm outside matching the turmoil within as medical files spread across imported marble countertops, pregnancy guides beside heart condition literature. Incompatible realities they somehow had to reconcile. "I'm keeping our baby," Aaliyah said, voice steadier than her hands. "Don't try changing my mind." Lucas paced the length of their living room, the space that once felt expansive now closing in around them. The doctor said, "I know what they said." Her eyes followed him, unwavering. "High risk doesn't mean impossible. It means you could die." His voice broke on the last word. 3 cardiologists had delivered variations of the same verdict. Pregnancy with her condition carried mortality risks between 30 and 60%. The heart murmur she'd lived with since birth, manageable when only supporting her body, might fail under the increased demands of pregnancy. "If you terminate," Dr. Abernathy had explained gently, "we can perform surgery to repair the valve defect. Your long-term prognosis will be excellent." "And if I don't?" Aaliyah had asked. The doctor's hesitation had said everything. Now, Lucas knelt before her chair, taking both her hands in his. "I can't lose you. Not after everything. Not when we just found each other. This baby is our miracle," she whispered. Your miracle. The child you never thought you'd have. I trade 1,000 children for your safety. Her smile was sad but determined. That's not your choice to make. Between medical consultations and hushed arguments came the corporate assault. Reynolds called daily with updates on plummeting stock prices. The board drafted separation papers. Investors threatened to pull funding. Let them, Lucas said after another heated call. I've built empires before. I can do it again. This isn't just about money, Aaliyah countered. It's your life's work, your legacy. You're my legacy now. You and this baby. The extortion text continued, each more explicit about what really happened in New York. Lucas had blocked the number 3 times. They kept coming from new ones. The media frenzy intensified, talk shows debating their relationship ethics, financial programs analyzing Whitmore Investments' future, gossip sites posting distant relatives' claims about Aaliyah's calculated seduction of Chicago's most eligible bachelor. What impossible choice have you faced? Did you choose with your head or your heart? Leave a comment about a time when all options seemed wrong. The board's ultimatum arrived by courier. Signed papers removing him as CEO unless he ended the inappropriate relationship, followed minutes later by a call from Aaliyah's mother in Mississippi. Bring my daughter home where she belongs. You've done enough damage. Clarksdale, Mississippi received them with humid hostility. Church whispers and porch glares for the white billionaire and the local girl who'd forgotten her place in the world. The decision to visit hadn't come easily. Lucas wanted top medical care in Chicago. Aaliyah needed her mother's support through a high-risk pregnancy. The compromise, a 2-week visit before returning for specialized treatment, satisfied neither completely but gave them breathing room from Chicago's media frenzy. Their rental car, a modest sedan chosen to avoid drawing attention, turned heads anyway as it rolled down streets where prosperity had never taken root. Children stopped bicycle games to stare. Old men on porches tracked their movement with suspicious eyes. You should have let me come alone, Aaliyah said softly as they approached her child at home. We face everything together now. Lucas squeezed her hand, his platinum watch and tailored shirt screaming wealth in a neighborhood where air conditioning was considered luxury. The blue house looked smaller than in photos, weathered clapboard needing paint, concrete steps cracked but swept clean, plastic chairs arranged carefully on a porch where 3 generations of Brooks women had watched the world pass them by. Aaliyah's mother waited in the doorway, arms crossed tight. Janice Brooks was 42, Lucas's age, but looked 15 years older, her face mapped with hardship lines, her stance protective and wary. Mama, Aaliyah called, voice brightening with forced cheer. This is Lucas. The introduction received a curt nod. Mr. Whitmore, my daughter's mentioned you. The unspoken accusation hung between them. Mentioned but never brought home, never made official until pregnancy forced his hand. Inside, the house's neat poverty spoke volumes. Furniture mended multiple times, walls patched but clean, family photos the only decorations. Lucas, who owned artwork worth more than this entire street, felt the weight of privilege pressing on his shoulders. Janice served sweet tea in mismatched glasses, watching him with undisguised judgment. So, you're going to be a daddy? Yes, ma'am. And what exactly are your intentions toward my daughter, besides the obvious that's already happened? Mama, Aaliyah protested. Let him answer, child. I've seen your kind before, she addressed Lucas directly. Rich men slumming with our girls until something better comes along. Lucas met her gaze evenly. I love your daughter, Mrs. Brooks. I intend to marry her if she'll have me. Love. Janice's laugh held no humor. Pastor Williams saw your picture in the paper, called you her employer, said what you're doing has a different name where we come from. That night, in Aaliyah's childhood bedroom, so small Lucas could touch both walls simultaneously, they whispered beneath glow-in-the-dark stars she'd pasted as a child. Her body curved against his, seeking comfort despite the narrow twin bed and the heat that made sheets stick to skin. They'll come around, she promised, though doubt threaded her voice. Will they? Or am I just another white man taking something precious from this community? Have you returned home? Changed? Did they embrace who you'd become? or try to remind you who you'd been. Leave a comment if you felt like a stranger in the place that raised you. Aaliyah's mother waited until Lucas stepped outside before gripping her daughter's wrist. He can't give you a future, child. Not after what happened to his first wife and baby. You think his heart can survive losing another? The truth waited like a time bomb in sealed New York court records. Not Lucas's sterility, but the child and wife he lost to a drunk driver while he was closing the deal that built his empire. Lucas found Aaliyah on the porch swing, her face ashen in moonlight. Mississippi nights buzzed with insect symphonies, the air thick enough to chew, stars brilliant above cotton fields that stretched to horizons uninterrupted by Chicago's light pollution. What did she mean? Aaliyah asked as he sat beside her. About your first wife and baby? His hands tightened on the porch railing. 7 years of careful silence threatened to collapse, the wall he'd built between past and present crumbling under the weight of her question. How much did she tell you? Just that you lost someone before, that I might not be your first. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, that your heart might not survive losing another. Rain began falling, gentle at first, then building to a downpour that drummed against the metal roof. They sat protected by the porch overhang, water creating a curtain around them, isolating their conversation from the sleeping house behind them. I was married once before, Lucas finally said, voice barely audible above the storm. Her name was Elena. We met at Columbia. She was studying art history while I was in business school. The words came slowly at first, then in a rush. How they'd married young, how pregnancy had surprised them both during his company's early days, how he'd been working 18-hour days while Elena prepared the nursery alone. I was closing my first major acquisition, he continued, eyes fixed on rain-washed darkness. The deal that eventually built Whitmore Investments. Elena called, wanted me at her doctor's appointment. I said I couldn't make it, that this deal was our future. Lightning flashed, illuminating tear tracks on his face. She was 7 months pregnant. A drunk driver ran a red light. The impact, his voice broke. They tried emergency surgery. I was still in the meeting when it happened. My phone was off. Rain pounded the rental car as Lucas finally spoke words he'd buried for 7 years. Each sentence like excavating shrapnel from wounds that never properly healed. Aaliyah's tears falling in harmony with the storm as puzzle pieces of his coldness finally formed a complete picture. I buried them together, he whispered. My wife, my daughter. They had to deliver her during the surgery. She was too small, too early. I held her once. 3 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect tiny fingers. Aaliyah moved closer, her arms encircling him as his body shook with grief he'd never properly expressed. After the funeral, I moved to Chicago, built a new headquarters, created the myth that Elena left because I couldn't father children. It was easier than the truth, that my ambition cost them their lives. Their bodies spoke what words couldn't express. Her touch gentler in places his soul had been wounded, his embrace fierce with the promise of protection he'd failed to provide before. I'm not leaving, she whispered against his chest. Not today, not ever. What pain have you kept hidden from those closest to you? What might change if you finally shared it? Hit that like button if you believe healing starts with honesty. The doctor's call interrupted their moment of peace, her voice clinical but urgent. Ms. Brooks, your test results are concerning. We need you back in Chicago immediately. The pregnancy is putting dangerous strain on your heart. Lucas Whitmore built his first million by age 30, his first billion by 40, and lost it all at 42 for a 19-year-old maid and the impossible child growing inside her. The board meeting lasted exactly 27 minutes. Lucas entered the familiar conference room for the last time, his resignation letter already drafted but unnecessary. They had gathered enough shareholder support to force him out, his controlling interest diluted by emergency measures he hadn't known existed in the company bylaws. This isn't personal, Reynolds said, not meeting Lucas's eyes. It's entirely personal, Lucas corrected, voice even. You're afraid of what I represent now. That money and power aren't enough. That a man who has everything might choose love over empire. The executive floor emptied of his belongings in 13 minutes flat. Awards, certificates, and photographs boxed by strangers while security waited to escort him through the lobby of a building that bore his name but no longer welcomed his presence. His assistant Catherine was the only one who approached him, pressing a flash drive into his palm. "Financial records from the last quarter," she whispered. "Things don't add up. Be careful who you trust." On the street, reporters waited, shouting questions about his ouster, about Aaliyah, about the baby that medical experts claimed he couldn't have fathered. Lucas walked past them to his waiting car, face expressionless despite the earthquake shaking his professional foundation. At home, Aaliyah waited with quiet strength, her medical monitors beeping steady confirmation of 2 heartbeats fighting against odds. She took his hands without asking how it went. His expression told her everything. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. It's just a company. It's your life's work." "No." He sat beside her, hand resting gently on her growing belly. "This is my life's work now." The financial impact was immediate and devastating. Board members froze his accounts pending investigation of improprieties. Credit cards declined. Invitations disappeared. Friends suddenly became unavailable. Even his personal investment accounts showed mysterious holds. "They can't do this," Aaliyah insisted as Lucas hung up from another frustrating call with his bank. "They can, and they are." He scrolled through their rapidly dwindling accessible funds. "I have emergency accounts they can't touch. Enough to keep us comfortable and pay for your medical care." What they didn't discuss was the extortion, the texts now coming daily, demanding payment for silence about New York. Lucas had finally hired a private investigator to trace the source, suspecting someone from his past had connected with current board members. He sold his car collection first, then his art, then his vacation properties. Each sacrifice felt lighter than expected, the trappings of wealth falling away to reveal what actually mattered. The medical bills mounted with each specialist consultation. Aaliyah's condition required a team of experts, cardiologists, high-risk obstetricians, neonatal specialists preparing for every contingency. Lucas wrote checks without hesitation, watching their reserves dwindle, caring only that she received the best possible care. In the stripped-down version of his life, Lucas discovered something unexpected: freedom. Freedom from expectations, from appearances, from the endless pursuit of more. In their bedroom, converted to a medical suite, he read poetry to Aaliyah's growing belly, prepared meals instead of ordering them, learned the rhythm of her body's needs and responses. What would you choose? Everything you've built, or everything you never knew you needed? Is there always a sacrifice? Comment below with what you'd be willing to give up for love. As they left the building for the last time, Lucas's phone lit up with a text from his former vice president. "Turn on the news. Your ex-wife is giving an interview about why she really left, about what really happened the night of the accident." The machines counted 3 heartbeats, Aaliyah's weakening, the baby's strengthening, and Lucas's breaking as doctors delivered impossible odds. "We might save one, but likely not both." Week 28 arrived with a medical crisis. Aaliyah woke gasping for breath, fluid building in her lungs as her heart struggled against the growing demands of pregnancy. The ambulance ride happened in slow motion for Lucas, oxygen masks for lines, medical terminology flowing above Aaliyah's semi-conscious form. The private hospital suite, secured with what remained of Lucas's accessible funds, hummed with medical equipment. The windows darkened against media cameras, fresh flowers fighting against antiseptic smells in a battle as desperate as the one waged in Aaliyah's failing body. "Her heart valve is deteriorating faster than we anticipated," Dr. Abernathy explained, voice low as they stood in the corridor outside her room. "The baby is developed enough to potentially survive early delivery, but the surgery would put catastrophic strain on her heart. And if we wait," Lucas asked, though he already knew, "her heart might fail completely. We'd lose them both." The weight of decision crushed down on his shoulders. 7 years ago, he hadn't been there to make the choice that mattered. Now, the universe cruelly offered him impossible options with no right answer. Inside the room, Aaliyah lay propped against pillows, oxygen tubes in her nose, monitors tracking every labored heartbeat. Despite everything, her eyes brightened when he entered, her hand reaching for his. "They told you," she said, not a question. Yes. He couldn't lie to her, not now. "I want her to live, Lucas. No matter what. I want you both to live." Her smile was gentle, accepting. "Some choices aren't ours to make." The medical team presented options, each worse than the last. Emergency delivery followed by heart surgery offered Aaliyah a 30% survival chance. Continuing the pregnancy reduced those odds daily. Experimental treatments existed, but carried their own risks. From his hospital chair, Lucas made calls to specialists worldwide, pulling in favors, offering anything for treatment options. He slept beside her bed, one hand always touching her, afraid to break contact even for a moment. Janice arrived from Mississippi, her initial hostility melted by fear for her daughter. She took the chair opposite Lucas, the two of them forming a protective circle around Aaliyah, differences forgotten in shared terror. "She's always been stubborn," Janice said one night as Aaliyah slept between monitor beeps. "From the day she was born. Doctor said she wouldn't make it then, too. Heart too weak. But she fought." Lucas looked up. "What?" "She was born with that heart problem. Doctors gave her 6 months, maybe a year. But my girl decided differently." The revelation shifted something in Lucas's chest. "She never told me she wasn't supposed to survive childhood. She doesn't tell anyone. Doesn't want pity." Janice studied him across the bed. "You really do love her, don't you? It's not just the baby. I'd give my life for hers in a heartbeat." How do you choose when every option breaks your heart? What guides your impossible decisions? Drop a heart in the comments if you've ever had to be strong when everything inside you is breaking. As Aaliyah's monitor alarm screamed into the night, Lucas was pushed from the room, doctors rushing past with equipment and urgent voices. Through closing doors, he caught her final conscious words. "Promise you'll love her enough for both of us." 1 year after Chicago newspapers declared him ruined, Lucas Whitmore stood in Mississippi cotton fields watching his daughter take her first steps toward the woman who had survived against every medical prediction. The medical miracle had unfolded in stages. First, an experimental procedure flown in from Switzerland, a temporary valve support that bought crucial weeks. Then, a premature but controlled delivery at 30 weeks. Finally, heart surgery while their daughter grew stronger in NICU, both fighting separate battles to live. The renovated farmhouse gleamed white against verdant fields, solar panels catching southern sun. The medical center they'd built visible on the horizon. A new empire grown from love rather than ambition, healing hearts instead of filling coffers. Lucas had purchased the land surrounding Aaliyah's childhood home, renovating the Blue House into a comfortable homestead while building the Ellie Brooks Medical Center nearby, named for Aaliyah's grandmother, who'd save bus fare for a better future. "She's getting faster," Aaliyah laughed as their daughter, Gabriella Elena Whitmore, toddled across grass with determined concentration, dark curls bouncing with each wobbly step. "Takes after her mother," Lucas replied, arm around Aaliyah's waist, supporting her still recovering body. "Stubborn, determined, beautiful." The heart surgery had been successful, but left Aaliyah with a long recovery. Daily medication and regular monitoring would be lifelong companions, but the specialists all agreed. Her prognosis was remarkably good for someone who'd faced such odds. Their new life in Clarksdale raised eyebrows at first. The billionaire who'd lost everything living in rural Mississippi, converting cotton fields into sustainable housing projects, funding medical care for a community that had initially rejected him. Lucas's financial recovery came unexpectedly. Catherine's flash drive had contained evidence of board corruption, embezzlement, and market manipulation that explained their eagerness to remove him. The SEC investigation resulted in criminal charges, Whitmore Investments returning to his control, though he now ran it remotely, focused on building something more meaningful than wealth. The extortion text had stopped after his private investigator traced them to Reynolds himself, a desperate attempt to hide financial misconduct by distracting with personal scandal. The New York secret had been nothing but bluff, banking on Lucas's reluctance to discuss his past. Evening fell across Mississippi as they sat on their porch swing, Gabriella asleep in Lucas's arms, Aaliyah's head resting against his shoulder. The medical monitoring equipment that had dominated their lives for months was gone, replaced by baby toys and picture books. Their bodies told a new story now. Her scar a silver line he traced with reverent fingers, his face etched with lines earned during months of fear. "We're impossible," she whispered against his mouth. "Every heartbeat defies probability." His hands cradled her face like something infinitely precious. "Then let's keep defying it together." The ring he'd finally given her caught sunset light. Not a massive diamond, as everyone might have expected, but her grandmother's modest band paired with a new one, symbols of roots and wings, past and future. Janice joined them on the porch, her initial judgment transformed by witnessing Lucas's devotion through crisis. She handed them lemonade in the same mismatched glasses from their first meeting, now comfortable with the man who'd become family. "Ellie would have liked you," she told Lucas, watching her granddaughter sleep. "She always said Aaliyah was meant for something extraordinary." Guess she was right. What dream seemed impossible but found its way to you anyway? What would you build if you started over with love as the foundation? Subscribe for more stories that show how love transforms everything it touches. If this journey from Gold Coast to cotton fields touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about love defying boundaries. Comment below whether you'd choose love over empire and what sacrifice would be your breaking point. Remember, sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted leads to finding everything you truly need.